I had the bid and they didn't give it to me because I didn't have employees already on staff.
Hey, welcome back for another episode of the Skid Steer Nation podcast. My name is Ryan Deemer, and I am your host. Today's episode, we've got what most of us younger guys would consider an old timer. His name's John Mace. He's the owner of Mace Enterprises from way up north in Sandpoint, Idaho. He got started in the industry back in 1976, so he's 46-year veteran of the trades here as an owner and construction before that. So excited to have you on the show, John, and welcome.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Yeah, man, you started your business before I was born.
I hear that a lot. 1976 mowing lawns just kind of kicked everything off.
Nice. Yeah, not by much. I was born in 77, so I'm right behind you.
Okay.
So we were just talking before the show that you're from Sandpoint, Idaho, and you're almost to the Canadian border up by Spokane, Washington.
Yeah. We're about 80 miles northeast of the airport there in Spokane.
So it's safe to assume that you transitioned into snow plowing for the winter.
Yeah. In fact, I just got done with about 30 hours of plowing snow over the weekend.
Wow, that's a good little snowstorm you had there. How many inches did you guys get?
Yeah. It was probably about, depends on the area that I was plowing in, 10 to 12 inches. But I have a bunch of businesses that I got to keep open, during the day and all that good stuff.
How many guys do you have working for you during a snowstorm?
It's just myself and one other guy.
Okay. 2 trucks, a truck and a skid steer. What's your setup for winter?
Truck and a skid steer. I have a Dodge Ram with a Snow Power F12 on the front of it, and then I have a Cat 259 D3 with a Snow Wolf Quattro on the front of it.
Awesome, man. And then when it's not wintertime and you're able to actually do some projects and let's call it pushing snow's real work, but I mean more technical work. What do you have a specialty that you specialize in? Or are you like a jack of all trades, whatever people need, or where do you fall in line with your business?
Kind of jack of all trades, and whatever people need. Originally, this last integration of my business, I originally was going to just do small 1 or 2 day projects, not schedule out more than 2 weeks at a time. Just to fill in the small projects that no one else really wanted to do because they're so busy with bigger projects. And in the summertime, I'm just a one-man show. So it's easier for me to be mobile like that than, have a bigger company come in and mobilize equipment for 1 or 2 days.
Right. Do you find that you get a lot of calls about similar projects, or is it really all over the board when it comes to inquiries?
It's kind of all over the board. It seems like every year there's something different that is needed with the growth in this area. Like a couple of years ago, I filled pretty much my entire summer just either building or redoing driveways. This last year, it was land clearing and site development, along with added gas, propane, utility lines for new construction as well. Okay. And I know one of the things we talked about before this also is that one of the biggest issues you have with your business is saying no. Like you want to help everybody. Yeah. It's kind of it's a blessing and a curse because the phone calls come nonstop, but there's also times where you just gotta step back and put the brakes on and really try to either tell people that you can't get to it for 2 or 3 weeks, or just recommend them to another company in the area that we kind of partnership with and throw work back and forth to each other.
Do you find because you are the so-called jack of all trades that it makes saying no even harder because you don't have like a specific lane? Like, oh, I don't do that kind of work. Sorry, I'm not the right guy for you. I recommend you call this guy.
Yeah, it is. Because I mean, at the end of the day, we're all here to make money. Helping people along the way is, kind of a bonus. And it's really hard to say no to someone who is really in need of a service.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, it's different type of work. I do some land work. We have the skid steer and the attachments and all that. It's not our core focus because we own Skid Steer Nation. But I mean, I jump on a lot of calls with guys where I do want to help them, and I probably help a few people I shouldn't, and it's bit me in the rear a few times, man. I had one guy go off on me both personally and like on Facebook because he was mad I wasn't giving him enough of my time, and it was free.
Wow.
I mean, just
That's
livid about it. He's like, "You left me out to dry," and I'm like, "I gave you 8 great pieces of advice. I can't handhold you to actually implement."
Right. And, luckily the stuff that I've done free of charge hasn't come back to bite me yet. I know at some point in time it probably will. This year, for instance, because things have been so good, I thought, and the community's been good to me, I thought I would, kind of give back to the community. And I picked one of my new accounts. It's an elderly lady that's widowed, and I'm plowing her driveway free of charge this year.
So I saw that on your business Facebook page, and I wanted to ask you about that because what was your motivation behind that? Was it literally just to give back because you're doing so well and you want to provide something like that, or was it a marketing idea for you to drive some interest in your business?
It really wasn't about the marketing deal, because I've been around here for so long, and the area that I live in is 10,000 people, maybe 11,000 people in the core area of of Sandpoint and the couple little towns around it. So my business doesn't suffer by, and I don't really market anything. Everything I do is word of mouth. And so it was just something that I felt that I could do to give back to the community when they've given me, a really good way of living, over the last 25 years.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a big proponent of doing that stuff, helping people without having an end goal of generating more revenue from somewhere else. Like that could be a byproduct, and you might get people that call you next year because they saw that, but it wasn't the goal or the intention of it. And I think that just shows, one, the character of you as an owner of the company, your commitment to the community, and your willingness to help, especially like the elderly with their snow removal.
Yeah, it was, she was pretty easy for the accounts that I have, she was pretty easy to decide that she was going to be the one that got that service. I don't do a whole lot of residential. Most of my stuff is commercial. And then when she said she had a pretty rough time last year with a guy plowing her driveway and piling up a bunch of gravel in her yard, and it's just like, it felt like the right thing to do with the right person.
Yeah, I agree with that. In fact, there's a story that I read years ago, and it's completely different industry, but this younger guy was trying to break into real estate and become like a agent for affluent homes. And he didn't really have a lot of experience. Nobody in the neighborhoods that he wanted to be working in knew him. So he was having a really hard time breaking into that. And there was a garbage strike in his whole county where the municipal garbage people strike, and the garbage was piling up. So you've got these $500,000, $1 million plus homes. Now they're getting all this garbage piled up in their driveways. Oof. So he went and out of his own pocket paid for a disposal company to go through one specific neighborhood and pick up all the garbage at all the homes. And he didn't tell anybody that he did it.
Wow.
Yeah. And what happened was somebody eventually found out it was him. And then over the next 12 months, I think he ended up selling like 17 houses in that neighborhood.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah. It's like just that whole story of like, how can you serve and help your customers, where if money becomes the byproduct, that's great, but it's not the intention.
Right. And, it's one of those that I sold a business a couple years ago, and I was pretty much going to retire or, lay really low and stuff. And I started doing these small projects again, and it just kind of has grown exponentially. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah. I have a feeling you and I are a lot alike where retirement's never going to happen.
No, I like digging in. Well, let's rewind back to the, starting mowing lawns at 1976 and running farm equipment, logging equipment, equipment at other jobs. And it took me until I was 50 years old to realize what I really wanted to do in life.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have a checkered past too, as far as industries go. I started out owning bars and restaurants and then got into manufacturing, ended up starting Skid Steer Nation. And while I love selling the attachments aspect of it, I've really found that my true calling and passion is communicating, working with, and helping business owners actually build a structural sound business that they can grow and either turn into a legacy for their kids, or they can sell, or they can remove themselves eventually at some point down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'm not planning on the plan is I've managed, construction crews and, crews, staff when I was a facilities manager, at a corporate place. And, my goal is not to have, 15 or 20 or 25 employees. I've learned over the years that, you can keep it small with myself and one, maybe two people. And unless you make a really big jump to like that 15, 16 people or more, at the end of the day, most of the time you're not making that much more money. And you just invite a bunch of headaches.
Yeah.
Because then, that gap between a few people versus, a dozen, 15 or more, you got so much more equipment, upkeep, you're managing personalities. And it ends up being more stressful than it's worth.
If you stay there, I agree with you. It's a maturation process that if your goal is to have a large corporate company with multiple crews and specific niches that you're working in, like it's a maturation process. You have to go through that grind and you have to go through that headache. But if you're just like, hey, I'm going to get to 2 or 3 crews and have 7 guys working for me, you could be absolutely correct where it's more stress and you're like, God, I make 30% more, but is it worth it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Agree 100%.
Yeah. So back to you here real quick. God, yeah, small community. You're doing great things for the community. So you're really able to just live on your name. The fact that people in your community have known you for a really long time, and you don't have to do a whole lot of work to make that phone ring. Is that correct?
No, in fact, at this point in time, it's not very often that I really reach out to someone. Every once in a while, like you'll see small projects or something like that, on like there's a local forum on Facebook, and there'll be people reaching out, needing, some sort of service. And if I have a little gap in time or something like that, I'll reach out to people to help them out there. But for the most part, it comes through other people.
So do you find, because that you've been doing this for so many years, you sold the business, you contemplated retirement. So, I mean, is it safe to assume if you are contemplating retirement that you enjoy this, but you don't need to be doing this?
Correct.
So do you find that because you don't need to do it, that more work is actually attracted to you?
I've never thought of it that way. But it could be that way because, I mean, when you're talking to people, I guess you're probably way more relaxed or feel relaxed talking to them than someone that really needs to sell themselves for the work, to make ends meet or to pay their crew or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think that happens. Like, I really believe the more comfortable we are and the less we need something, the more attracted that is to us. And it's a tough struggle, especially when you're starting out and growing a business, of like finding the right work that gets you the best profit margins, being truthful and trustful enough with the customer. That may mean you don't get the work, but you're like, I need the work. And you just kind of get caught in this like repetitive cycle where you kind of become your own worst enemy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that probably could be part of the reason why, going back to, it's hard to say no. When people get really comfortable with you and they're like, I don't care. There's a lot of times where I've had people say, I need to have this done this week. You end up meeting with them and then they're really not in that big of a hurry, but they really want you to do the work after having that conversation. So it's, like I said, I'd never thought about the way you stated that, but because I've been, I guess, gifted with the ability to sell stuff. So it makes a lot of sense, being relaxed like that. It draws in a lot of people.
So you talk about that you've been gifted with the ability to really sell really well. Have you formally worked on that, or is it just matured over time? And do you actually study from your past failures and wins to make your presentation better or your customer experience better, or is it just organically happen for you?
It's just kind of organically happen. I think you learn over the course of time and years and interactions, what to say, what not to say. And I think the bottom line is being upfront and truthful and honest and being accountable for whatever you say and trying to help the end user get what they need at the best cost to them, but yet still make it so you're profitable in your business.
So now I would change one word out of that last sentence you talked about. I would be getting them exactly what they need for the best value.
Okay. Either way.
Well, because like value doesn't have a dollar amount. So value is all like, you could pay $20,000 for a truck in Idaho, but a guy in Chicago would pay $30,000 for the exact same truck. And if you both feel you got a good deal, you both got a good deal. Like at the end of the day, you felt there was value in that purchase. And I feel that the land service industry is very similar to that, where I think where most contractors, especially those starting out, they don't know how to provide value to the customer. They just want to go out and provide a service.
Right. I agree. And really, I mean, the end of the day is, we can make money, we can make profit. But like you said, at the end of the day, if a customer isn't happy, you're going to have one job and you're going to be done. If you, like you said, give them a good value, you're still making some money yourself. Then if they have another project, they're going to call you back, or they're going to refer you to, their friends or other people or whatever. And so it just keeps kind of snowballing at that point in time.
Yeah, I think the best lesson I ever learned about business, I was probably 26 years old. I had owned my own nightclub for about 1 year, and I'd been in the industry for 5 years as a manager when I was in college and all that. But I remember sitting down with a bar owner once, and like his best advice to me was, if it's something you wouldn't do, or you wouldn't drink, or you wouldn't eat, or you wouldn't enjoy the experience, odds are your customers won't either.
Yep. 100%. I agree with that.
So like when I build something out or make a new product or whatever we do, my first question is this something that I would enjoy, or is this a warranty that I would find to be fair? Is this, and if that's the first question I ask, because if my answer is no, then that offer is no good. The product's no good. We need to rework it. Yeah,
exactly. And, I went through a bunch of different variations where, I thought I would key in on a certain type of work or something like that. And you start asking other people around you to see if it's worthwhile. And it's kind of the same thing. Sometimes it's yes. And then other times it's like, you might have one or two people, but it's not going to last for very long.
Yeah.
So I understand that with what you're doing. That's, you have so many different products,
Well, but like for you, John, like if you dug out a new roadway, laid the fabric, brought in the sub base, put on the gravel, and you got completed the project, and you took a step back and looked at it, and you're like, it's okay.
Right.
Like if that was me, I would go back in there and I would refinish it. I'd re-rake it. Whatever I needed to do until I went, that's the driveway I would allow in my yard.
Yep, exactly. In fact, the cold weather and the snow caught up to us, but I have a project like that. Did a bunch of work for this couple, put in an RV pad and stuff, and kind of the same thing. Things didn't kind of work out the way I would ultimately like it, and so I was going to fix it this fall, but just the weather caught up to us. So I'll go back in the spring and get it done the way it should be done.
Like, speaking of jobs that don't work out the way you like it to, one of the things you mentioned was hitting a water line that the landowner said was on the other side of the property. Walk us through that, the shock of when you actually hit it, what you ended up having to figure out for a solution, and what you learned from the experience.
It was just a PVC line that was alongside the road. I was doing some post holes for a fencing, and just dug down and hit this line, and had a hole full of water instantly. And then it was a scramble to figure out where the turnoff for the water is, and it happened to be about 400 feet away. So by the time I found it and got it turned off, we had a lot of water. So then I put a compression fitting back on it, and everything was good, finished everything out. And then come to find out in January, when it was about 5 degrees outside, that it was leaking. So then I had to go back in, fix it. Again, had a bunch of clay, muck, 5 degrees outside, full of water. And then I just cut a big section out, about a 20-foot section, and just fixed it the way it should have been fixed probably the first time.
When you say fixed the first time, was that by yourself, or by the way it should have been installed differently?
Yeah, it was totally my fault. I should have, instead of being in a hurry to get this other stuff done, I should have just dug the whole thing back, and glued another chunk in there, and fixed it right, instead of trying to do it the quick and easy. The quick and easy was really good for a few months, and then it kind of caught up and bit me in the ass. So,
yep. It's funny. Like we always talk about, there's three choices a customer can make, right? You've got quick, cheap, and good.
Yeah.
Pick two.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't have all three. Like if you want it cheap and good, it's going to take a long time.
Right. Exactly.
And I know, and I find that I use that same philosophy in my own business too, like for decisions that I'm making. Like, is this something that I can do quick? Is it something that I should do good, but I want to do it quick? And I can kind of prioritize, like, okay, this is something I should probably stop and take some more time and do.
Yeah. And I think, that one was, again, it's part of learning what to do and what not to do. And, I had that thing exposed for 3 days. It didn't leak a drop of water. And then come wintertime, I think just the hydraulics of the earth, may have moved it a little bit. Yeah. And that's when it sprung the leak. So, you fix the mistake you made, and you move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, one of the things I was really excited about asking you, because you've been in the industry and a business owner for a really long time. Like if a new contractor, less than a year in business, sat down to have lunch with you, what would be your biggest advice you would share with them?
I would say grow at a comfortable pace and not go to an extensive debt, trying to make a bigger, a fairly sizable company right out of the gate, because you just never know when you're going to hit, inflation, recession, whatever. And if you're stuck, with a bunch of overhead, you're not going to make it. So, unless you come up with a big contract early that can pay for that stuff, and even then, I would suggest, just kind of slow roll it, and make sure that if something does happen, contractor goes out of business or whatever may happen down the road, that you're not stuck with a bunch of overhead where it may bankrupt you.
Yeah. I'm a big proponent, and I try to tell everybody I talk to about this, is sell it before you buy it.
Yep.
Like if you want to get into land clearing, go sell 5 land clearing jobs before you drop 30,000 on a mulching head.
Right. Yep.
And their mindset is, I need to buy the mulching head so I can go sell the service. And I'm like, no, you can sell the service and book it out later in the year.
Right. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Here's a good example that kind of happened to me a few years ago. Big box chain store. I put a bid in for their snow removal. Didn't have the equipment at the time. Didn't have any employees, but I have people all the time that want to come work for me. So getting a couple employees is not a big deal. Leasing equipment, not a big deal. I have a good relationship with the cat dealer in the area. And this big box store, I had the bid and they didn't give it to me because I didn't have employees already on staff. So it's like, I was trying to get the work before I hired people or got the equipment, and they wanted it the exact opposite.
Welcome to large corporate structure.
Yeah. So then I just, it's just one of those deals where I walked away and refused to put a bid in for it again.
Yeah. I think it's great. I think that's great advice too. It's, knowing who you are, how big you are, what your limitations are, what you can comfortably do, and just staying in that lane. And as you continue to mature and grow, just revisiting what your lane is, readjusting who you are, what kind of jobs, what your goals are.
Yeah.
And not being upset when something like that happens.
Right. And, at first I was upset because it was a big contract. It was, close to $250,000 for 6 months. But at the end of the day, it's like, maybe it was a blessing in disguise. I don't know. I watch the guys go through that parking lot now in the middle of the day, in the middle of a snowstorm. And it's like, I don't think I want to be dodging cars like that.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, so was it snow removal?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. That's those big box stores are snow removal, and then your insurance liabilities and it's hard to salt it properly.
Well, yeah, it's hard because, there's not very often where you have a clean parking lot and there's no cars in it. So, you'll have, it's really spotty. You can get the main throughways that people are driving on, but where the people are parking, it's so hit and miss. And then it builds up with ice, and then you're fighting the ice, and it just keeps going from there.
Yeah. In fact, last winter I went to a big box store. We won't say any names. And the truck was actually finished plowing and throwing salt out there. And he was just finishing when I pulled in. I parked the truck. I stepped outside and my boot hit the ground, and it didn't touch the ground for 1/10 of a second. And it was above my head. My ass was on the ground. My elbow hit the ice. There was zero salt anywhere near this parking spot. And it was just black ice.
Yeah. And then, depending on how that contract reads, if someone gets hurt because of that, you could be on the hook for it, because those big box stores, they get rid of as much liability as they possibly can.
Pass the buck whenever they can.
Yep, exactly.
Nope, absolutely.
They don't get big by covering everything.
Yeah. So what's your goals for 2023? Like, what do you envision? Just keep doing what you're doing and answering the phone and having a good time? Or do you have some areas that you like some types of projects that you're really interested in doing more of?
Yeah. So I'm in the middle of talks of maybe signing a contract to do a bunch of foundation work, digging foundations and backfilling. We'll see where that goes. But right now I'm just kind of sitting back. Like I said, the last few years, every year, it seems like it kind of changes on what people's needs are around here for the most part. So I'm just kind of, doing my snow removal, enjoying that, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't have really anything except for that one potential contract that I'm working on, which is kind of out of the norm for what I'm doing. But it's kind of something new and something that I really want to look forward to.
Very nice, man. That's great. That's great. And then we've been asking everybody, like, if you get on the podcast, like, what's the one thing that you're interested in with me? And like, I think you had written down like why I got into this business.
Yeah. How did that all start?
How did that all start? Well, man, like I said, I own bars and restaurants. By 27 years old, I had 3 of them. We had 110 employees. I learned very quickly a year or 2 after that contracts and partnership agreements are a lot more important than I thought they were at 27. And we ended up dismantling 2 of them because of that. And then going back to my one, the 2008 recession hit. Times got really tough. It became such a drag. The stress was ridiculous. I hated going to work. You can't quit because it's not a job, it's your business. And I was just kind of really burned out. And I spent the next like 6 to 8 months not sure what I wanted to do and grasping at any idea that sounded good. They all failed because I wasn't focused. And finally, I was like, I just got to get out of the house. So a friend of mine was a part owner in a manufacturing company that made skid steer attachments. And I took a job for $12 an hour plus commissions to go sell skid steer attachments. And 16 months later, I became the GM/president of the manufacturing company. They got rid of the entire management team and handed it over to me. I ran that company for 8 to 9 years. They wanted to sell the company, so it was time for me to go find my next venture. And when COVID hit, I just had a lot of free time at home, and I knew that was the time. I'm like, if we're going to do another business, now's the time. We've got the time to put the infrastructure in. The world's quiet. Nobody's yelling at me to hurry up and do something. So we just sat down and started structuring out Skid Steer Nation. Like, the vision for me had always been to create an outlet for small family-owned manufacturers to get some good exposure. There's so many great manufacturers out there that make really good attachments, whether they're regional or nationwide, but nobody knows about them because they focus on engineering and manufacturing, not sales and marketing.
Gotcha. Yeah. And that makes total sense. And I applaud you for that, for, keeping with that kind of what mainly, kind of like the mom and pops type stuff.
Yeah.
And getting their stuff. Like if it wasn't for your page on Facebook, I would have never, ever seen those Roadrunners. And I think that's probably going to be one of my purchases next year. I think that thing is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. So I own a Roadrunner. I own the Do-More 4-blade grader. I love them both. None of the large companies are making any kind of land plane style box graders. Yep. And they're so much faster and efficient than just a standard bucket. I mean, I get that argument all the time. I can do the same job with a bucket. I'm like, you can, but I can do it in a third of the time, which means more profits in my pocket, less wear on my machine, minimal maintenance. And it's just kind of like the ROI spreads out across the whole business.
Right. And, what I seen that was really nice with that Roadrunner, having that hydraulic adjust ability on both sides. When you're doing driveway work, you can just get such a much more cleaner edge than you can with a bucket. Buckets are kind of, you move around a little bit type of a deal. And again, it's standing back at the end of a project and going, man, that looks good.
Yeah. We've had a lot of guys that have bought land planes, just the basic land plane with the ripper teeth. Yep. They did a lot of driveway and gravel work. And then typically it's about 8 to 12 months later, they come back and buy one of the grader boxes. And they're like, man, it's like going from the minor leagues to the major leagues. Like, the edges are so much cleaner. The crown's better. Like, it's not just a flat surface. And people that do a lot of specialty driveway repair or installations, they absolutely love them. Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of funny. I've had some people come at me because a lot of my
driveways don't have any crown in them. And it's really funny, these armchair quarterbacks, and one, they're not part of the conversation with the landowner. And two, they don't realize that we live in a part of the world where very little is flat, so, basically you're either sloping the driveway out over the bank, or you're sloping it towards a ditch and then putting a culvert in at the bottom and running it out. The flat driveways, just, there's not many of them around.
The contour of the land is going to run the water off for you.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And then when you're working on that, you also got to think, you think ahead for snow removal. You could pitch this for this rain to run off, but then, their tractor, their rig, their four-wheeler, whatever, if it gets a little slick, then all of a sudden, are they going to be over the bank or into the bank? So, there's a lot, you can't just look at right now. You got to look at, the 4 seasons.
Yeah, that's great advice. And, looking at the 4 seasons for when you do the work, and then even for your business, like we go through seasons with our business. We have times where, you can't get it. You have so much work, you can't get it done, to times you don't want to do the work, to times you don't have any work. And we just all go through those seasons. And like for you have a game plan on the projects for the next season or 2 seasons ahead. As far as doing the work, I think it's important that businesses have a plan for the seasons they go through in their business also.
Yeah. If not, you end up getting stuck and you're going through the motions. And then when you're going through the motions, it just ends up being this vicious cycle. And then it ends up like you were at the bar, the way I was with my sign company, where you actually hate even getting up in the morning to go to your business, because it becomes such a burden, and the stress and everything else, that it takes away from your life. Instead of, the life is driving you instead of you driving your life.
Absolutely. And we are the captains of our ship. So if we don't like the way our life's going, then nobody's going to change it but ourselves.
Yeah, correct. Let's go back to that, that one piece of advice, to give a new business owner. There's another one that I know you said one, but here's the second one, that I really, really am adamant about, is build long-term relationships, whether it's personal, business to business, or whatever it may be, because if you don't have long-term partnerships of some sort or relationships with even people that are direct competitors of yours, it's hard to navigate through life on your own. You're always going to need help. So, I have probably realistically a half dozen competitors that we do the same exact thing in this area, and we're always referring work back and forth to each other.
I think that's amazing advice, both professionally and personally. I've done a lot of work on myself in years past, and I kind of translated it into our businesses too, but taking that same concept you talked about and developing boundaries. So like I start with a piece of paper, I draw a dot in the middle of it, which represents me. And then I draw 4 to 6 circles outside of that. And the farther away the circle is, the less of an intimate relationship I have with that person or that company. Yeah. In the first 1 or 2 circles, like your first circle, of course, is all your family. Second circle is all your close friends, great customers. And then it just keeps expanding out. And when I meet new people, I always look at that person. I'm like, I wonder what circle they're going to end up in. Like, are they worth my time to invest in them to develop this relationship? Or are they only out for themselves? And no matter what I do and what I provide, it's never going to be a relationship that's worth value to both of us. And I need to keep them on the outer rings.
That's awesome. And it took me until about 10 years ago to come to the realization of any type of relationship, personal, business, whatever, it's got to be two-sided. If you're chasing a relationship of any type, it's not worth it. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that's putting everything out there, and there's really nothing. You're throwing something at a wall and it's sticking, but there's, that rubber ball's not bouncing back at you.
Yeah. We've all had that one friend growing up that they were a good friend. And then as life happens and we all mature, maybe he doesn't mature or he matures in a different manner. And like the friendship just becomes toxic, and we hold on to it because we've been friends with them for so many years. And when we finally cut the ties on that, we don't realize how much weight was holding us down in our life. And I'm
100%.
I'm a big proponent of like understanding that with businesses too. There's just certain customers, you're never going to make them happy. So we call it the 80-20 rule, man. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, John. The 80-20 rule. 80% of your profits come from 20% of your customers, and 80% of your headaches also come from 20% of your customers.
I would say that's probably 90-10. Yeah. And the same, it's kind of the same concept that they say about, hunters. They say that, 10% of the hunters kill 90% of the game year in and year out.
Yeah.
And then you have the other 10%, they get lucky or, something happens and they're successful here and there, but it's not a consistency over and over.
Right. No, I agree. I've just learned to look at customers that I've had bad experiences with, and I try to research that to figure out what traits do they all have in common? Because there's going to be similarities in their personalities and the questions they ask, the demeanor they ask them in. So when I meet somebody new and we start talking, I can go, oh man, this guy's going to fall in that bottom 20%. I'm just not available to do the work. Like, I'm just going to say no before we even get started.
Yeah. I've been very fortunate in my life to be able to read people pretty darn well. It's burned me a few times, but for the most part, I can read people well, and kind of had something like that happen to me this year where it's like kind of going into it, I kind of had a iffy feeling on this person. And at the end of the day, it was a good account for the summer. But if I had to do it all over again, I probably would have walked away.
Yeah. I have found in my own personal life that when my head and my gut are conflicted, my gut's never wrong.
Exactly.
If they're not in alignment and your head's like, no, but we can get through this, just trust your gut.
Yeah. When I ended up it was a driveway job. It was going to be like a $2,500 driveway job. And it ended up being like a 2-day job. And it ended up being lasting all summer long. It was like a $30,000 job. And it ended up being just a nightmare the last week and a half of the whole project.
Yeah, that's never fun. And we can limit it the best we can, and we can do our best to not have that happen on a regular occurrence. But there are going to be instances where something unforeseeable happens, or a mindset changes midway through a project, or scope of work changes and we didn't have it built out right in our contract to adjust for that. But, it's all about minimizing those mistakes and learning from them so we don't repeat them second, third, and fourth time.
Yeah. And I'm a huge proponent of handshake deals. And as I move along, this is actually the first year ever I've had snow removal contracts. Usually it's just a handshake and I do what I do and they send me a check and everything's good. But it's just getting to the point now where I think you almost have to have a contract for every single thing that you do, just to protect yourself.
No, I agree with that. I think it's a great investment for any business owner is to get some good contracts in place with some verbiage that allows you for change orders, scope of work, so that you don't get caught holding that bag. Not that most people want to hurt you, but if we get a bad taste in our mouth from one or two, then we lose trust in the other 99.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've come to the realization that from now on, every time I meet with a customer, I'm just going to take a GoPro with me and I'm just going to video and record the entire conversation. So then if there's any discrepancies, you have that in your back pocket to protect yourself.
And that's great. And like, you could even hide that and not say, I'm recording this in case we have an issue down the road in this project, but you could use that GoPro to say, hey, I like to shoot video of the project, get an idea of this so that I can go back and rework my notes to create the best estimate possible for you, and just have it turned on the whole time.
Yeah, well, and you got to be really careful because there's state laws in different states that say different things about recording conversations and all that stuff. In Idaho, the law is as long as there's one person in the conversation aware that it's being recorded, it's okay. So you could, like in Idaho, I can record, this conversation on my phone and not, even though it's, for a podcast or whatever it is, or I guess it is a podcast. But, if we were just having a general conversation on the phone, I could record it, not even tell you, and it would hold up in court.
Got it.
So we're lucky, we're somewhat lucky in Idaho that we can record that whole thing. And, you don't even have to let them know, but it's pretty hard to, if you have a GoPro there and you're videoing the whole thing, for them not to notice.
Yeah.
But you really need to check your state laws because every state's going to be different on that.
Yeah. That or just come up with a great way to let them know in a very low level manner that you're not recording it so much to protect yourself, but as so much as to make sure you have a 100% grasp of what they want in their project so that you can go back, review that for your estimates.
Yep.
And not miss any little work that needs to be done for the project.
Yeah, because there's so many times where you're doing, land clearing or land development, and it's like, okay, cut that tree down, pull that stump, leave that one. Even though that it gets, it may get marked with ribbon or paint or whatever it may be. There always seems to be these little minute things that get missed or misunderstood or whatever. Along the way, even if you're taking notes, things just get missed.
Or that tree looked really good that's going to stay when it's surrounded by brush and other trees. And then when you get it all cleared out, it's like, no, I wanted it all gone. I want that just to be an open area. Yeah. Like, no, you wanted that one left. No, I never said that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we've run into that a few times too. So,
well,
John, this has been a great conversation, man. Is there any other topics or anything that you want to kind of throw in there before we wrap up?
It's been great. I'm glad you had me on here. It's been a great conversation. I can't really think of anything offhand, but just hope everyone has a good holidays and a good spring and into the summer of 2023.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation. I think if you actually sat down and took a really good listen to it, there's quite a bit of little nuggets in there from your 40 some years of experience that people could take away and quickly implement into their business and probably see some benefits to it. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your life experiences and your knowledge and being a part of the Skid Steer Nation community. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be a part of. And, if anyone out there needs to bounce anything off of someone else, feel free to reach out. I'm pretty much available 24/7. So I'm an open book, and I really want to help other people not make some of the same mistakes I've made over the years.
Got it. Well, John, again, thanks so much. And for you listeners out there, John is talking about the CH hydraulic adjustable grader by Roadrunner. We have the link to the product page at Skid Steer Nation in the show notes. So if you're looking for a easier, better, faster, more efficient way to grade driveways, even spread some rock for driveways, check out in the show notes the CH adjustable grader. Thanks so much, everybody, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Skid Steer Nation podcast.